Estamos aqui na 33ª edição da Feira Arco e o Art Industry Forum, que é esse encontro anual de experts do mercado de arte, se encontram. Está acontecendo paralelo à feira, um evento satélite à feira, faz parte da programação. E o tema é Inside Collecting, dentro de colecionismo, e alguns tópicos que a gente vai abordar nessa conversa são como é que valor e a reputação se influenciam aos outros numa coleção, como criar um tema unificador para uma coleção, qual que é o papel dos consultores de arte nos próximos 10, 20 anos, o futuro desse papel e em perspectiva com que ele foi até então. E além disso, temos uma feira aqui muito interessante, acho que praticamente tem um número grande de galerias brasileiras que estão aqui presentes, e historicamente a Feira Arco era uma das portas do mercado europeu para as galerias latinas, então é uma feira importante, e eu espero que vocês aproveitem a conversa sobre criando uma coleção como parte do Art Industry Forum. So I think as the role of the art advisor is being redefined, we're constantly trying to innovate the way we do things, to try and keep up with that. So I'm coming from a company we started in São Paulo with a group of partners called Art Options, and what I'm going to present with you, we're using that word collectivism, which is a word that has been used, it's a word that doesn't exist, it's a word that has been used by Maximiliano Gioni and a few other curators, so I decided to put it there because coming from a Latin background, if you're a Latin speaker, it is a word that's helpful. And we work with individual institutional collections, and it's very important for us always to have a unifying theme. And being from an emerging economy like Brazil, education is very important to what we do. We have an estimated like 150,000 millionaires who could potentially be like collectors, and we have maybe 2,000 or 3,000 collectors from my experience. I could be wrong, there's no number, it hasn't been counted. So it's key to us in our activity to back what we do with research and reason, and not just to say, like, to advise on personal preferences. And I'll share with you a way that we thought was innovative of how we did this with a corporate collection we are working on. So this is a developer, and the developer has several buildings in central São Paulo, and they're prepared to start building a few new skyscrapers in the US. They're extending the operation. And this corporate client wanted a collection that somehow was representative of the America's institutional taste because of the branding agenda. So the first challenge we had was how to identify objectively and justify that with reason what was the institutional taste, what we call like Americanism. Secondly, how to find sources to hunt for new talent, I think is everybody's million-dollar question, and how to sync in with the field sentiment around those images, because we're doing the research from São Paulo. So I'll move very quickly through this. So firstly, what we need, we listed a few of the key contemporary artists that would give us an idea of what were the discourses that were happening there in the productions. And then we went through some critical material and some of the interviews and tried to extract a few keywords to what they were trying to do as artists. So in this case, pipilotiristi, like experience and sensorial, were key phrases to what she's trying to do. And then we grouped these words we did for all the artists in these different categories. So like multimedia, connectivity, co-creation, language, artistic-public relationship, space, urbanism, nature and architecture, experience, sensorial, and political act, enunciation, frankness, barriers breaking, freedom of action, ephemeral, transient, and market. So these were our categories of meanings that were happening globally. And then we took a few institutions, 3 institutions in the US, and we have a good research team, so we can do this kind of thing. And we went back 5 years to see what were the words that were recurring on the program of those institutions. So this was the process we did. So like this Roman on deck, like where this artist, like the visitors had to go from one part of the exhibition through the wing of the airplane. So we thought that experience was a key word to define what he's doing. And this artist is using co-creation. She's painting, and accident and process is very key to the way she paints. So we put co-creation and process as the keywords. And then we are very methodic. We mapped the repetition of these phrases in a spreadsheet, and this was done for the Guggenheim, then done for the Whitney, and we're short of time here, but if you want we can go back to this separately, and we did it for the New Museum, and we consolidated in a table which basically showed that in America, like this connectivity, co-creation, language, artist-public relationship was the top one in terms of the institution. Just after was political art, denunciation, and this was number 2. And once we elect as number 1, number 2, since we are in Brazil, then taste played a part on it. Here we are talking about taste and knowledge. Taste played a part on it. We decided to leave this political, this number 2, we decided to leave out because we're Brazilians, not Americans, and and we thought that this was more what our client was after. And then we mapped a few art fairs and a few galleries that are known for introducing new talents to the market. And more importantly, we mapped a few blogs, because the blogs can actually give us what is the local sentiment. There's no point if we see an image if we don't know how people are reacting to it. It's very helpful if you need to make a decision. And then we could come up with a number of names of artists and things that we can't disclose for client confidentiality, but my point here is more about an innovative process that did help us to come to a result. So the key conclusion here is the collection is rational, backed up by research and evidence through a method able to power clients' brief with perspective and cohesiveness. So it's we are taking the decision out of our hands of saying, like, look, this is what we think you should be, and actually creating a system that somehow can back the decision we're going through. And this will initiate later a conversation that we start having that will bring us. We use this process to initiate what we call like a mission statement for collections. So what's the vision for this collection? Where is it going to be? What's the next generation, or what's the new management going to do? So we try and predetermine prior to the start, as much as we can, this agenda. Secondly, we had a unifying theme based on analysis of trends of institution and critical sentiment. And thirdly, most importantly, it allowed us to build an intimate connection, not only with the essence of the artistic discourse of a large number of artists. It took us about a week to do this process of 3 people working full-time on it. So we managed to do that through keyword research, but connect with the whole field. So not only we helped the clients, but we helped ourselves to really get connected with what's happening and provide a solid collection directive to the client. Thank you.
You too as well, but I think, just to pick up on what you're saying, I think this idea of, which may be the difference today, is that the idea of wanting to be actually more involved with the artist and with the work, rather than just being in the background and then passing on to the team in the end. What are your views on the changes in motivation?
I'm also personally from a family of collectors, and I collect myself. I've been collecting for a few years, and I really think the motivations are exactly the same as they've been forever. It's It's because you want it. First, it's because you like it. I mean, everybody buy, like the first piece anyone can buy at a fair, at a gallery, after seeing the piece in a museum and you're looking for the artist on the internet and you see where you can buy it, or even an artist studio. It's really the first piece you buy it because you like it and you want to hang it on your wall. It's when you have no room on your walls that there's something different that comes in. So for me, the motivations are still the same. What has changed is that art is much more expensive, and that's what you said. And so what has been changed is that it has become also an investment. Because although you really buy something because you like it, when you like something that is like 200,000 euros, you think it twice. You think you have to tell yourself, okay, even though maybe I'm a millionaire or a billionaire, it doesn't mean that money doesn't have is not important for you. And maybe even more, because maybe you will be successful, you build a company, a startup that you sold for, I don't know, how many millions, so you know what's business. And when you like an art piece, you already, like, it's common sense. You still, and even more with contemporary art and videos and installations, like, it's still, like, the price of art has crazily increased. And whereas, you know, in the typical collectors, you highlight perfectly the time frame. It's really switched in the 60s and the 70s. But before, if you see all the very important impressionist and modern collections that are today in museums or in foundations, like, they were doctors, they were lawyers. Like today, I can't tell why. I know, like, in America, doctors are more better living than in France. But in France, I can tell you, my doctor, he cannot buy the money of his time. But definitely, it's not that's true, just the way it is. Because there has been a huge influx of new collectors, emerging countries. So, and most of them, they all want the same thing. So they bought it for the same thing, and it gets more expensive. And because they have the means to make it to go up.
I guess that's what's changed. And in a way, it's actually that, I think, you know, his gripe isn't the fact that they're terrible, it's just that he's not in that league anymore.
Yeah.
It's moved to another planet.
Yeah.
And maybe that creates other challenges.
And so for me, it's not the motivations that have changed, it's just the fact that you have to include in your hand when you buy something, it's an investment. And then it brought another kind of collectors that are not collectors who aim to collect, to accumulate pieces because they want it and they love it, but people who are art investors. And I don't know if we can really say they are collectors in the way individual people are collectors.
Yes.
And that's...
So I have a view on this change.
Yeah, in my context, I noticed a change. Like in the mid-late 90s, I was an art advisor, we were organizing auctions. And when talking to collectors, they were basically buying what their friends had or what they had seen. And if I counted the number of people I was interacting with and checking what percentage of them would be open to some sort of leadership or some sort of innovation, it would be like 1 or 2 person. It wouldn't be very inspiring. It would be quite disappointing. And I think today the percentage of people who we interact with who are interested in innovation, in participating in their times, has grown a lot. And they really want to, they are prepared to take risks. And I think leadership and innovation comes out of relationship, and art is a relationship business. So we have a client now who is prepared to, like in Latin America, they call it like a godfather. So he's prepared to bank a new artist who is quite transgressive and doing some things that are very polemic. And I said, like this week actually, I called him and said, look, maybe this project's not for you, because he was on the fence. I said, no, I'm in. And so it's I'm quite optimistic with the motivations in our times.
Just to pick up on what you said, Annalise, and I think it's very interesting, is the idea that maybe one of the changes is the investment angle of things. And I think, I don't know, I'll throw it open to you, but is it because of the power that now that collectors can have in the art market, is that attracting different types of people? As we were talking earlier about Alfonso Pino or other people like that, even Charles Saatchi, who kind of create these machines that self-validate. They collect, they put it in their private museums, that increases the value, then they sell. And it's a sort of factory, quite an interesting business model for the fact. I mean, is that something you think is coming further, the idea of creating value in the collection? That's all.
I think there are like very, very few people in the world, maybe 10 people that have the means to do that.
Yeah.
To have the charisma, to have the viewpoint, and the financial means. Of course, the system where you buy from the gallery, you can buy the whole exhibitions because you're identified as an important collector because you have a foundation and because you have the money, so you buy all the exhibition for 50% of the price because you buy all the pieces. Everybody is happy, the show is sold. The artists, they know they're gonna be in museum shows, in institutions. Then you do the shows. You do the shows at your foundation, but you also sponsor museums who include the pieces. And then you have an auction house or a gallery or even both. And you can resell it with no commissions because it's your own. So it's true, it's an amazing circle. But hopefully, I think there are very, very, very few people that can do that.
Good.
Yeah, I think two things I would comment. The business model itself is neutral. Whether we use it to one way or another, then is down to the person who's running the business model. And secondly, I'd comment that we can choose to follow or not. So it's in everybody's hand to choose to do what they are preaching or not. And so we can have a position for or against the system. It's in each person's hands.
Yeah. And I think it's going back to the idea, the power. What is this power? The power was number one power. It's influence. But is it influence? Is it just buying power? Is it because you have 600 million to spend and that's why you're powerful? Or is it maybe in the old days where collectors or influential people in the art world, it was about their artistic taste and practice, and that was closely watched by the rest of the art world and collectors, and sort of forms it. Is that the same way with collectors now? Are people looking at necessarily what Sheikh Ahmad says why, or does that matter anymore? Who's taking that role? I know any ideas on that?
I think it's definitely like this. I think the collectors who spend a lot of money and a lot of time and engagement in, also maybe in working with pieces, they are definitely very important for setting up values of taste, defining the importance of content, defining also like what is for a society maybe of relevance, and for sure it's a big discussion if you have somehow the culture created, let's say, by a few powerful people, or if you have the culture created by the form or model that was maybe balanced with private people and the kind of institutional side of museum collections, where you had at least somehow like the structure of some art historical reference, maybe also not this kind of hurry. So the art market is speeding up, like somehow. That's when I was working for the Götz collection in Munich, like now Frau Götz, I know her very well, and now she's also a little bit older now, she's somehow like a little bit pulling back from this kind of really active craziness. I can remember when we went to Art Basel, we had our list of F14s and F16s and F17. I had to call before, but we will be there at 11 and not like 5 minutes past 11. But the other collector was earlier and the piece was gone. So this kind of running into the fair to get something where you have maybe called and I think it's sometimes existing, it's still existing, and so this kind of speeding up, you can miss something. You are not the one who owns it, you are not the one who can sit then later on in the hotel, Three Kings, with the other collectors. Oh, you have got it. Yeah, I've got it. Oh, you got earlier than me. These kind of little jokes in between these people that are playing the game, very powerful. I think it's for society in general problematic. And I would also maybe address the issue of art advisors or such a project that you were describing. We have then also this kind of responsibility to balance, somehow to balance the craziness of these kind of side effects of the market.
Well, I mean, I think that you gave me the entree to get into the art advisors, which I think is fascinating. And I think, we're talking about the collectors and all, they're in a vacuum in a way. Is there, it sounds like there is more of a need than ever for an art advisor in this, these powerful people who are sort of, running the art world now. How do you balance that challenge? How do you do that? How does an art advisor, I think classically, as you said, collectors have their own personalities and it should think. What is the role of an art advisor in that? And how do you balance the craziness? How do you do that? Is it education?
I think in my role, let's say like if I talk about the past a little bit, like the Götz collection, in my role I never was getting somehow influential in this kind of first buy out of love for an art piece. This you can't stop. It's impossible. Even you can't maybe say, if it would be my money, I would not spend any kind of amount of it. But if you like it, if you love it, if you have fallen in love with it, you must buy it. It's happening. I think our role in the team of this collector was then more or less, if there were 2-3 things of an artist, and there was maybe taking the decision to think about, should we continue to buy this artist, should we really go deeper into the work, should we really try to find maybe an interesting line of works to tell part of the story of this development of an artist. Then for sure we were like advising on maybe these kind of possible social stories, maybe the art historical effects. And if it was really like a significant number of works by an artist in a collection, then for sure we were also advising on maybe something art historical, to say really, also meeting the artist, talk to the artist, sit down and say, oh, we have this, what you would recommend to add. Do you have something there under your bed, what could be maybe really an exciting piece to edit? And then you are for sure, you are very trustful. Some of the artists just respect what you are doing, and you get extraordinary pieces. So our role as advisor was at this point really more this kind of art historical aspect and the aspect to fill in gaps. And maybe also at one point to say, if it's now 250,000 for this piece, forget it. Spend 250,000 on 20 younger artists and have again the fun of this falling in love.
I think it's if every client is different, and some they want to know about the art history, some they just want to know about the colors, some they want to know about the background, and you adapt. You need to be able to answer all these questions. And I think in the world today, I see there's no typical client. Like they're asking for many different things. The thing is that that they don't have the time that we have. If you want advice art, it's a full-time job. It's a 365 year long, and you get to go all around the world. You get to know the prices. You don't, of course, you need an art net or price account, but you also need to know the price in the private market. So you need the confidence, the trust of the dealer, so they will tell you the right prices. So you need a lot of connections, you need a lot of travel, and you need to study a lot. It's not just Googling. need to study. And our clients, I mean, they are industrials, they are not doctors anymore, that's clear, but the agenda is really full. I mean, they don't have time to go see the exhibitions all around the world, to the fairs, one day in Arco, tomorrow in Brussels, tomorrow in Arco show, and now you also have to go to Frizz because there's also Frizz in New York. I mean, it's quite impossible. You need to have someone who does that all year long. That's why, and because it's more expensive, there's more money in the game. It's also, you need to be reassured that you're not doing something totally crazy. So there's a real need for art advisory today. The other thing also, which I find funny, is that I think collectors today, they don't want to be wrong anymore. And that's also a reason why they prefer to rely on an art advisor or art advisors, because they can have one who specialized in the Middle East market, one who specialized in the Asian market, and this is actually what they should have, because it's not just European, American, you need to have specialists in every kind of market if you really want to have a clear view. But yeah, the thing is that they don't want to be wrong. They want to be able to say, no, maybe it's not my decision, but I'm going to tell you a story that I love, so I'm going to share it. I had the chance to meet a collector who's dead now, but who was, like, I guess, the best collector of modernist painting I've ever met. He was American, and one day, so I was young, and I went to his place, and he had a fantastic house in New York, and you would see on the walls the most unbelievable painting that you can see in museum, the Matisse, the Picasso, the Monet, the Pisa, everything was there. And so you were going around and you were telling yourself, oh my God, but how did you make that? How did you have this vision? This is just unbelievable that people could make up such collections. Everything is right. You get everything. And you know what he answered? He said, you haven't seen the basement yet. And believe me, in the basement, there were like thousands of objects. And there were only like 50, 60 pieces displayed on the walls of the house. But how many, artists that nobody knows about, like maybe he bought 100 paintings for one Matisse, And people took the risk to be wrong also at this time.
Well, I was talking with Reno about this during the break, is that people don't want to make any mistakes anymore, where in the old days it was okay to, that's how you learn, that's how you did. Do people want to fast forward straight to perfection now?
Yeah.
What do you think, Dan?
How can you create art without making mistakes?
Yeah.
I think combined to everything that Anne-Hélène was saying, we need, one of the things that was critical for me when we started Art Options is we need to have a business model that allows you to say what you think at this, because and after that you need to know what to say, to use that power and to be discerning, to know what to say, because the art advisory like this is being redefined, as I said in the beginning, and it goes all the way. It's a profession that is, you have all, being honest, is like people like jet setting and like selling art all the way along to people who realize that it's a profession that benefits from a lot of independence, because we don't really need to follow any agenda. We don't need to follow any museum's agenda, any fund's agenda, and we can be impartial, and I think that can be an extremely fortunate position. And I think we need to. I was going to mention is like a continuation of the previous question on the power of society and these guys, because we have next Thursday in London the second edition of the Private Museum Summit, where about 30 owners of museums will get together to exchange ideas. And so if we keep up, so if maybe today we have 2, 3, or a few, now we have 30 that are not as known as the 2 we mentioned, but these 30 soon will be as known as the others. And maybe in 10 years we'll have an even bigger number if we keep up to date with what they are doing and feed back into the art advisory system.
I'm thinking because I'm just trying to scan the
Yeah,
collectors,
that's
and I know, and
Your
I'm a little
database.
bit related to, and
Yeah.
I must say I know very few who have really a precise idea what happens with
Right.
that collection. There are very few who really have a model somehow to say this will be like this. Some of them are hoping. There are some who are hoping. For sure, they are dreaming about the kind of Guggenheim Museum for themselves, like an extraordinary architect, and the name of the collector be on it, and somehow the public takes over for the cost and whatever.
Yeah.
Or they're dreaming about a ring, a small ring at least,
Yeah.
in some of these
Little
places.
wing.
They are not really addressing that very openly. Some of them have, they think about if they have children, they realize the children are not really interested to follow up in most of the cases, I would say, because it's too much related, it's too personal, and maybe they don't want to step now in father or mother's shoes and do the same thing and run around fairs and all this kind. So it's very unprecise what is really the idea. There are some that are quite sarcastic and saying, "Oh, when I'm dead, I don't mind, everything is getting sold."
Yeah.
But for sure, then as an advisor, you think a little bit about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you keep it in mind, but on the other hand, I think it's a normal situation in life somehow, and it's not necessary to really to calculate that. I think these kind of ideas, what will be in the future, it's something whoever knows how the future will really look like. So we are doing the best, whatever is planned.
You guys have any?
I think I can share two stories. We have we're negotiating with some clients. It's a couple. They inherited companies and they don't have children, and they're part of their history is in a different country in Latin America. And they came to us with a clear agenda. We want to do a museum to be significant in that country and actually draw some tourism and somehow benefit the community. And so that started from the beginning already with that end in mind. And that's why we like this, like a mission statement. Like if they want to dive in, we are prepared for that. We want to be prepared for that. But we also have another situation where we try to give some sort of direction, and the client says, "No, I just want to have fun. This is playtime for me. Like I have a hard day at work. My company is a nightmare. In the evening, the weekends when I'm collecting art, I want to relax and have fun. And then our role is just to try and get some decisions right."
But and it sort of leads naturally onto the other thing, the future of all of your roles. Not to worry you too much, but there's you'll be fine. But there's a couple of things that I think that are happening in the art world that actually are impacting on probably your role and the need for it. One is the sort of transparency of things. You know, collectors can now do their own art research. They can go online and to Art and places like that, and just interact with each other and not bother with you guys. I mean, you know, and maybe the sophistication of collectors going on. And number two, I think, is that globalization issue, which you talked about. You know, people are now collecting art from Africa, art from Asia, art from China. Are you guys able to let's start with you. What do you think of all those? Are you fearful of your future? Are you
I think there's really a huge need for transparency because too many people have had bad experiences on the art market, and as it's growing and a lot of new collectors step into the limelight. I've heard Brett Gorby, the international showman of contemporary art at Christie's, said that the three biggest buyers in the London sales last week were unknown totally to the auction house a year ago, and that these people didn't. A lot of people and the people who were trying to get the bacon. Some of them have never heard the name of bacon they thought it was ham like a year ago. So this is
Expensive now.
this is yeah very something. So there's these people that are starting to collect that might settle a lot of museums, a lot of foundations, and that have to be taken really seriously. They cannot be played with. This is too important. And the problem that the prices are not transparent and that the commissions are not transparent is a huge problem today. As young collectors, or it doesn't mean young, but new collectors, you can start collecting when you're 70 or 20, and you can be from all over the world. And what billionaires look like, dress like, is totally different from what they used to dress like 20 years ago. So you cannot judge a book by its cover anymore. And when these people they say, okay, I have the means, I bought, I have like 5 houses, I've got a yacht, I've got like my wife has so too many diamonds, I'm going to buy art. This seems to be something interesting financially, fiscally, and this. So, and maybe I'll build a legacy and give what I wanted. So it's great. So they go to Art Basel because it's the biggest fair, or to the Fast, they can straight they go to there. And they go to a galleries, and there are 2 options. First is that they don't get the price because the galleries don't know them. And they say like, who are you? And believe me, these people, they don't like to be treated that way. So they walk away. And so the second option is even worse, is that they get a prize, but they also have an art advisor or some friends that are the third, they get the free kings, and they say and they realize there are like different prices on the same pieces at the same time. And that people told you, yeah, it's like $1 million, and someone else got like 800,000 at the same day. And really, this is even worse, that's when they don't get the price, because they walk away. And this is something really wrong. So I think prices have to be, I know like people, they don't like to put price tags on the art pieces. I also think it's a bit vulgar, but still, there needs to be an available price list in a gallery, and the price cannot change from a minute to the other.
Word or not, I think sometimes in my thinking I try to drive mystery to the arts, and sometimes I want to demystify it, because I think it's an interesting exercise. And so when I hear like, are we worried about the future of being an art advisor, I think, would a doctor be worried that in the future surgeries will be done only by computers and robots? And would a psychoanalyst worry that soon there will be a software that will answer all the questions and he'll be useless? And so I think there's part of the work that can be automated, that's great, and the human part of it, I'm very optimistic, it's fantastic, we'll be able to put more time in it. And now one thing that I spend a bit of time thinking, maybe I worry, or maybe it's not that far, but I do think of it, is how is this dance between these different actors of the art world will evolve? Because we have some curators playing the art advisory role, we have some decorators playing the art advisory role, and so this is something that I'm watching, and I think I'm optimistic that as this strategic, but the diligence can be, as we were talking the other day, this diligence can be automated. It's basically you get a checklist and you get it done. It's almost admin work. And the strategic part, the thinking part, which is trying to navigate through all the hundreds of art fairs and we have, and to build the relationships, and this is something that we always have to work on.
Right. Before I open up for questions, Reinhard, can I have your view on the future of your life?
The future, yeah. I think you had like 3 questions related to that. First, about the transparency in the market. Yes, it's a big problem. It's a very serious problem, and I know it from both sides, from artist side, gallery side, collector side, and the prices are changing every minute. I don't know how to solve this kind of problem, but I can also understand that some of possible collectors are really not. I must say, it's not possible anymore to pretend I'm able, or this office or whatever is able to have all this in mind and knows really that's interesting and that's interesting. So from our part, if we would have somebody who is interested, let's say in South America, we would always say like, oh, we have to refer to some other people that have knowledge in the field and maybe contact you.
No, I was saying I'll refer you to German
It's impossible to pretend that. And the information through the internet, I think that's not a problem somehow, because I think it's good if people have as much as information as possible, and then you can somehow react and can even advise them how to evaluate the information. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated, like for the art collection Telecom, what we are doing, we have a very small board of 2 people, so we can act very soon. If I see something here on the fair, I think it's interesting, I can send an SMS to these 2 people, should we or should we not, and then it's yes, yes, or no, no, or yes, no, and then I can say, come on, we buy this piece. But on the other hand, for sure, we are getting from the board dozens of emails. Oh, look at this could be interesting. Look at this could be interesting. And it's just material that they're getting. It's not filtered. They expect that we are doing somehow the filtering process. So that's a little nightmare. Somehow it's handled.
Middle management gives you art advice. It's a great thing.
And I think it's a situation where we can add a lot of value and practice our relationship skills, because just by being a third party that can sit on a table with these 2 different generations and say, what are your plans? Let's listen to him. And then we go and we listen to the other party, which somehow without us present, it wouldn't happen. It's like a family therapy, art family therapy. And so it has been a situation where we're very pleased, because we can see ourselves adding a lot of value just by creating an environment where we all can listen and then bring a framework like this idea of the mission statement to say how can we all to understand that's being built like over decades what you are not interested in. Is that important for the parents? Is that so? It is. I particularly like these situations, and both parties, like in this case, that there was a resistance to talk, and now they're more like listening to each other and open their minds, and especially the new generation.
New collector who's looking to start a collection, what one piece of advice would you say should be the overriding theme?
Buy something urgently, because you only start learning once your thinking is connected to your wallet. And if you make a mistake, hire an advisor. Question on conservation, because we had a client who was resistant to having a conservation company to go there and do the reports, and I insisted. I said I used the card of saying, look, if you do this and the gallery knows that you're doing this, they'll respect you more for carrying the pieces. And actually he went ahead and he listened to the advice, and the gallery was impressed and gave him a better price afterwards, because they thought that the pieces would be better looked after in the collection. So
there you are.
Yeah.
To end on that, I just want to say, first of all, use all that advice and go out there and do stuff. Or bring these people with you. I want to thank you, fantastic panel, for all your knowledge and the real insights you've given us today, and very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.